I was working on the cooling lines for the supercharger. So with the supercharger, it came with pre-molded lines to fit whatever application, and I kind of jerry-rigged them in there, but I think I showed before I had to do a lot of this crap, and so it didn't rub on the frame and everything. So all my lines used to run under the unit body here, where there's, you know, sharp metal and stuff, and my pump. I had it under my front spoiler somewhere like in here. So what I did was buy some heater hose line and reused all the T's that came with the pre-molded lines, and cut in a small hole and took some old vacuum line. It's actually more like a, well, I guess it's just a really thick vacuum line, and cut it in two and put it into that hole so it can't, you know, the heater line can't rub into any of the sharpness. And I filed everything down and doled it down. So that's on the driver's side, and they fit a lot better because I can actually put them down the rail, the frame rails there, instead of having them just zip tied to the power steering lines and stuff how they were originally. This side has two lines, so I did the same thing, just made two holes as small as I could, and cut some vacuum line and put it in there, and I'll probably throw a little dab of sealant or right stuff or something in there just to kind of keep everything together. But I'll do all that after I got all my lines on and secured the way I want them. And then that way this line doesn't have to ride right down here. It used to be kind of right below the frame there. It can all ride up in here and be out of harm's way. And then my pump will actually go up here now, you know, mount it safely under here, and it'll just hook into this like so and go straight up into there. But anyways, just thought I'd kind of show that, and gives me a little bit more room to work on my coolant tank there. So I just kind of mounted everything so I can make sure it's all going to work before I call it good. But thought I'd show that real quick while I was working on it. Alright, well, I didn't film too much. Just kind of got going with it there and just kind of kept going and didn't really stop to film or do anything. So anyways, I got most of the cooling done to the supercharger. So as I was talking earlier, this stuff was all pre-molded and really didn't fit in the car all that well. And so got my lines running right on the rail there, and then they come up, and they're actually both nice and far out of the way from the header, so they won't touch the header and do anything. For those of you who've asked me what kind of dipstick I've been using, just a low-car flexible dipstick. So that's what that is. Got the heater core lines kind of back on. Got the rest of the wiring to the injectors and coil pack and the coils back on the passenger side so I could finish up some of that stuff. Got the radiator back in. Didn't really do too much on this side. I got to cut the plastic band on that fitting right here, and then pull that chunk of old supercharger cooler hose off, and then this is the new one here, and I gotta mount him to the side a little better. So kind of got all that done, and I put my upper radiator hose back on, and this line right here is for the steam vents, which I talked about and told you it's next to impossible to get this hose on with the supercharger, so that's why I put it on before I got too far. Didn't do too much in the front as far as modifications. The biggest thing is, just my new, where I'm running my new cooler lines at. It should be a lot better. Got the, probably stick a little piece of something behind that so it doesn't rub. Power steering cooler, supercharger cooler, trans cooler. That's just the overflow for the puke tank, and I got to get that on there. And then in the very first removal video, I had this pump attached to the front spoiler bolt right under the front spoiler, which I already kind of knew I was going to want to do something different with that. So mounted it up here, and it's working out a lot better. I did utilize some of the molded hoses. I had one splice here I had to do, and then there's where the lines are coming out. Got the puke tank mounted in, and doesn't seem like a whole lot of stuff, but kind of a lot. The alternator wire to the charging system and stuff, it's this wire here, and it actually runs under the supercharger kind of through and pops out over there. And then all my starter wires and stuff, they're coming off of the fuel rail wiring on this side, and they actually all tuck in over here and go down, hook up to the starter. And yeah, there's not a whole terrible lot of stuff left to do. Still waiting for my throttle body, and I ordered a new fuse center to hold my fuses and hold my relays better. So that's kind of the last thing I'll have to really mess with is wiring. Getting my wiring cleaned up. I don't have this header mounted yet because I gotta jack the car back up and stick the starter in first and do the wiring so I can get to the wiring, and then hook the wiring on the starter and stick it in there, and then I can do the exhaust, finish doing the wiring to the transmission. I just gotta hook them up, and as far as I can think of, that's pretty much everything underneath the car. I'll probably still do something different with my fuel lines for long, but that's something I can do anytime I want. There's enough room down in there, I can get some steel lines ran and stuff. So, but overall, it's coming back together. So, just a quick video update on it. I don't know, for some reason it seems a lot more crowded. And then as far as the hood goes, I have one hood for it. I don't really like it. I've already discussed that. Even though it's cut out and it clears all this, the flat part of the actual hood still rubs right here. So my idea was to take the hood and cut right on the sheet metal right here on the hood, and then just bring that whole piece of skin up off of the frame of the hood, about 4 inches to clear this and everything, and then just kind of bring it and go back down to the point here, and kind of make a crowd induction hood, sort of like the 71 to 74 AMX javelins had, where the whole hood was kind of one big, hood scoop crowd induction type of thing. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about doing for the hood. I could reinforce the skeleton all together. I could basically cut the skin off, put the skeleton on, make sure I get it all rigid and strengthen up, make sure it clears everything, and then stick the skin back on and just go get me some sheet metal and, you know, cut it in a taper design and then just weld it up onto that and then, you know, weld it up onto the skin and just do it that way. So that's what I'm thinking about, but I haven't really decided on what I'm going to do about a hood yet, because I would like to have a hood on it. As fun as it is to drive without a hood, it just, I don't know. I'm not really, you know, super excited to drive without a hood, I guess. I'd like to just put the AMX hood back on there, but I'm not going to cut it up and mess with it. It's a pretty nice hood, so somebody down the road might really need that hood. But anyways, that's just kind of where it's at. Just another quick little video update. And I'll just finish up the last little bit of stuff I got to do to it, and I'll start working on some wiring and bring the camera out when I need to. All right. Well, I'm going to see about getting this transmission wiring all the way back down and in the tunnel and hooked up to the transmission, and then get the starter back in, get the little bit of wiring over there done, and then I'll tidy up everything down here, make sure we don't have fuel lines touching exhaust and all that fun happy stuff. And then that'll pretty much be everything underneath the car here, so I guess that's what I'll start working on. Alright, well, I got to jam the starter, but I need to get my wiring wrapped around kind of the way I want it on this side also, because I got to plug in the crank sensor. So get the wiring kind of wrapped over here, get the wiring hooked up to that, and then I'm actually going to attach the wiring to the back of the starter already. That way I don't have to fiddle with it, and 2 bolts, shove it in there and be done. Alright, so I got the starter in, all the wiring in, and gonna be kind of not too terrible, but that black thing's the dipstick, and just run all my wires right behind the dipstick there to keep them from touching any kind of exhaust. So that works out real good. And then my O2 sensors, I just got them zip tied to this bracket here that holds the torque arm, or whatever you want to call that thing. So all the wiring is attached, and then a couple more people are still curious about the exhaust on this car. Now I modified and made some long tube headers, but I'm not happy with how they came out. They're got a lot of hammer dents in them, and I think it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. So I took my block huggers and another header collector flange and cut the 2 1/4 flange off the block huggers all the way up to where they're nearly 3 1/2, and then welded the collector onto them, turning it into a solid 3-inch exhaust. But anyways, as far as clearance goes, you got enough clearance to get your hand around the frame and the exhaust. You got plenty of room to get to your alignment nut bolts, and you know, you got enough room between all this stuff. I'll have to move my tie my transmission lines or something out of the way a little bit, but they're also attached right there in the oil pan. Keep them from flopping around too much. So, but anyways, oh, and my ground wire just on the block there, and it's kind of a split ground wire. It's got this little type of ground wire, and that goes to my frame, I think in the exact same spot the AMC ground strap was on. So it all works out pretty good. And I don't know, there's a little room between the oil pan and the cross member, so it's not great. It's probably about 1/4 inch, but it's enough room in there for a little bit of movement. But if guy's that concerned, he can put in a different cross member or build his own deal. I've never had any issues. But the block huggers exhaust is the best fitment that I can tell you. I mean, there's little to no modifications on them fitting, and when they're actually stock and you haven't converted them to 3-inch, they even fit even better. But I needed 3-inch for the supercharger, so. Alright, well, I got a little bit of wiring to do on the other side and move my transmission lines a little bit out of the way and get this car back on the ground and hopefully not have to be under it. Alright, before I put this thing back to the floor, everything is done. Transmission bolts. There's no bolt that goes in here. A little bit more room on the driver's side as far as wiring and headers and everything goes. So got my fuel line kind of resituated so it's not just hanging down and hanging out. Got the 3 wires that go to the transmission on, and that's pretty much it. So I can actually set the car back on the ground now. I will have to climb back under because I'll have to change my oil, which is actually pretty easy to set up. With the long tube headers, even though they favor this side more, they actually, the way the pipe would come down was actually in the way of this too. So just too much stuff in the way for my taste. But with these block huggers, we can get the filter off, change the oil and all that good stuff. So, but now that's everything under here. So good for me, I guess. And I need to put I need to take the tail shaft off the tranny and put a new bushing in there. That has a leak to it. It's not real bad, but you know, even sitting here this long, that's how much it's leaked out, is, you know, that whole little spot there. Not just that drop, not just the fresh drop, but the whole spot. So I do need to fix that, and that's about all I can think of under here for now. So, all right. Well, it runs still. Have to get the interior back together. I took it apart to get the dash pad off. So that's a good place to put the camera. Right out of the way. Pull it forwards in the garage so I can work on it a little better. Surprised it's moving. It's got a pretty much flat tire. Moving the Jeep back. Tire's pretty low. Alright. Well, made it in. Guess I'm going to kind of start working on the gremlin again. This here's getting pretty close. I gotta wait for a few parts yet still, and I checked on the shipping status and they're saying all after Christmas, so that's kind of a long time to wait for something you ordered a week ago, but whatever, I might get here before then. But probably one of the first things I'm going to tackle is the grill. Got a couple ideas on how to make a custom grill for it, so get the grill figured out. And I was looking at a new set of wheels and tires for $600. I mean, that would be tires and wheels, so for the gremlin, I wouldn't have to worry about buying tires. They look pretty good, but they got some dry rotting in them. So, but anyways, and I also need my battery back out of this. I robbed it out of the AMX to start this, so I have to get my battery back. But well, I'm gonna spend the rest of the evening here cleaning up the garage and getting my mess cleaned up from this project here, and we'll start probably, like I said, working on this gremlin here a little bit more and doing a few things to it, and I'll be happy because this will be able to start and run again, just in case something happens with these different shops and different places I'm looking at buying. So, you know, the more I know about that, the more I'll keep everybody updated. But right now, still just kind of fiddling with the banks and offers and whatever else is going on. So, well, I'll make one final video on this, I'm sure, after I get parts on it, and we may or may not be able to start it, depending on, you know, how much different everything is going to it. I mean, it may start and run. Just have to check the air-fuel ratio, make sure we're not going to burn the engine down. So it's going to be sucking a lot more air, and it's going to have a lot more things going on. So maybe one of those things we may not really be able to start it and do much with it, but it may start and run idle fine, and that's fine. That's good enough for me. If all I got to do is load it on a trailer and it'll start and run and drive itself up on there. So that way it's not in a bunch of pieces. And then we need to fix the front spoiler. So got a few things left, but anyways, well, thanks for watching, and we'll make another video here soon.